to the Middle Earth March Madness Finals. This is the biggest year we've ever had for Middle Earth March Madness. We've been doing it for several years. The staff of the OneRing.net puts this together, and you, the fans, vote. And I tell you, the debates have been contentious. We've seen comments on both sides of the choice over on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on our message boards, in our Facebook groups, everywhere. People are having a hard time accepting that their loved ones and their best friends may have no connection to the scene that they're voting for, and vice versa. This has been just one of those things, and it's been an enlightening couple weeks as we see, just what scenes fans worldwide respond to. I am joined by an all-star cast of folks from the OneRing.net. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Justin.
This is our biggest panel that we've had yet, guys. So
yes,
strap in for quite the event.
So Chris is the co-founder of the OneRing.net, and he is the keeper of the records. He is our guy with the briefcase.
I gotta find him.
He has not told anybody who the winner is. He is the only one, and under threat of penalty of death, he will not give us any hint. So you are finding out at the same time we are finding out here live.
No clue what's gonna happen, but
pretty sure La La Land won it, right? It was La La Land.
Yes, La La Land. Well, thank you,
Go
Justin.
ahead, Chris.
I do have the winner right here in a briefcase next to me. It's been guarded all day. Actually, that's not true because the voting just ended 7 minutes ago or whatever it is.
You and me have been planning this since the beginning, Chris. So we both know.
So we have such a great panel. So many people are involved in this effort, from the inception to the promotion to the posting on the homepage and to there's a huge team effort here. And represented amongst our panelists are all those folks who contribute in some manner. I want to especially highlight Korean Dragon, who is joining us at 3 o'clock in the morning in Scotland?
Yeah.
Pipsky says there's no sound. I don't know if other people have that in the chat.
Oh, is there no sound?
Because
that could be a
some
problem.
People are getting some
There's
sound.
I'm hearing it.
Yep, there's sound.
Yeah.
Confirmed. Early on there wasn't with the clips, but we're joined from all over the world here. So let's get this party started. What we thought an appropriate way to start this final show for the 2020 quarantine edition of Middle Earth March Madness, besides reviewing how many people voted, this was taken about 30 minutes ago. So again, over 5,000 people participating. The US and the UK represented, Canada, Germany, Australia, France, Netherlands, Sweden. I was hoping New Zealand would break into that top listing, but it seems like the Kiwis didn't come through.
No such luck.
I know. Maybe next year. We'll see.
Were they number 11?
I don't know. It's a good question.
We're lucky number 13.
Justin, zoom in twice on your browser. I think that'll help with the presentation as well. I thought we could take this opportunity to sort of review our history of Middle Earth March Madness, starting all the way back in 2012, and maybe even get some of the input from some of the staff on what was happening during those times, and some of the mistakes we've made through the years with this tournament. Our very first year was 2012, and as you can see, the bracket looked very different. We had 4 divisions. the Rankin
Wow.
Bass division, the Tolkien family division,
Oh,
Jackson division,
I think
and the
Cliff
Oh
Ralph
gosh,
Bakshi.
I remember this.
oh my God, I remember that too.
Oh, Cliff is here.
Oh wow, I remember that. Hi guys, sorry I'm late.
Volume is a little
Cliff!
loud.
Yeah, your volume is way up.
Forgive me. I'm actually I just had put a turkey in the oven. Hello everybody.
A turkey.
Cliff, it's so good to see you.
Nice to see you, Cliff.
Hello, it's nice to see you all as well. Again, how are you?
Awesome.
So as you could see in our bracket here, you know, we started out with these divisions based on you know, just some fun divisional matchups. I don't remember how we put this seating in place. I think it was just like, who's your
It was
favorite
random.
character?
It was just
Was
random.
it random?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it was random.
And notice that we only had 8 starting out rather than 16 starting out in each bracket in
Yep.
this first 2 that we did it. So it was smaller, and it was literally, we just randomly divided the characters up and we just gave their teams names, but the team names had nothing to do with the characters that were in the brackets.
And so if you look through, you know, Gandalf beats Theoden, and Gandalf makes his way through the Rankin Bass division to win that. Aragorn comes out of the Ralph Bakshi division. Legolas comes out of the Tolkien division, and Samwise comes out of the Peter Jackson division.
My man.
Yeah, I think the final this year, if I remember correctly, was Gandalf versus Sam, maybe? I don't remember actually now that I think about it. I don't have the final matchup graphic. I couldn't find it. Kirsten, do you remember? Or
Yeah,
remember?
but also I'm going to look it up right now whilst you're talking, Chris, because I wrote that up in an article just a couple of weeks ago. So let me look that up whilst you're talking, and then I'll tell you.
But
Well, hasn't
obviously,
Gandalf won more than anybody else if we look at all of them throughout history?
Yes.
Gandalf.
Yeah.
I think Samwise actually won that year.
Sam won this year. He was our first champion.
Yep,
Oh,
Wow.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
funny.
wanna
This
reveal
is the way how I found out about the One Ring, because of this particular.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how
That's
I found
awesome.
the website. I was like, oh, what's this?
Well, what a
It's
totally
pretty
geeky
awesome.
thing to do. I want to do it too.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I'm going to say it would, I don't know. I vaguely remember it being Aragorn and Sam. I don't remember.
No, it was like, I think it was Gandalf and. I know
All
for
right.
sure it was Gandalf. One of them was.
Oh, yeah. No, Gandalf won a couple years. We'll get to those.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Here, the winner was Samwise Gamgee.
Sam.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
So he was our first Middle Earth March Madness. I vaguely remember asking Sean Astin to promote this a bit and get his people to vote for him. I don't know if anyone else remembers that.
I kind of remember that. Yeah.
We were voting early and often.
Yep. All right. So, Kirsten, did you see who the final matchup was? I don't remember.
I'm having trouble getting the article to open, but
That's
as soon as I have it, I'll let you know.
So then we went to 2013. I switched up the colors. You know, we're on blue, and now we're at a field of 64.
Wow.
And it's really the format we see today, right? It's exactly the same graphic. You know, why change a good thing, right? So this one, what do we do? Do we do people and their locations? I don't know.
No, because Luthien is in the Shire.
Like the first 3 or 4 years, there was no theming for how we divided the characters.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
just random.
Got
Oh
it.
yeah, because I'm seeing Luthien in the Shire. I'm like, what?
With
We
Morgoth.
just did it randomly first few years.
Barg does not belong in Angmar, but whatever.
So the final 4 in this matchup had Galadriel and Thorin and Elrond and Gandalf. And then the final matchup was Thorin versus Gandalf. And
And that was
I'm making
Gandalf's
this-
first victory.
Yep, and
Yep.
that's Gandalf's first victory right here. So then we get to 2014, I went red with the theme, as you see, the red. You know. And again, random. It looks like random placement and seating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
And somehow, coming out of the bag end division, Thranduil beats Bilbo.
And this was the
I
first
remember that
year-
chapter.
This was the first year that the Thranduil fan girls and fanboys went nuts about voting for Thranduil.
That's what I was thinking. Like, was this the year that like we just got absolutely hammered by Thranduil fans?
That
Yep.
first year, yeah. Yeah, so the first, Chris, I just went back into my records. The first year the final was Aragorn and Samwise. And as you said, Sam
It
won.
was Aragorn. Okay,
And then
yep.
this next 2 years, 13 and 14, was still just a random mix. And then, as you just said, it was Thorin and Gandalf, with Gandalf coming out on top. And then Thranduil in the final in the third year. And
here we go.
against Legolas.
And Thranduil comes out on top.
Yeah,
as
it was
our
father and
2014.
son.
Wow.
And I
At
recall
that
our
point in
conversations
time.
I recall a conversation in our staff being like, wait a second, this is a little crazy. This seems too odd that that he won.
Did we get hit with a
So
bunch of bots that year?
yes,
Yeah.
well,
But it was the 2015 was the year that there was a real problem with bots.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
and here we
gosh.
go. This is our first ever disqualification.
Sarah in the chat room asks, I wonder how different results would have been in 2005 before the Hobbit films came out.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here you see we're in the 2015 Middle Earth March Madness, and we have again, if you
Yeah.
look, it's the same matchup that was in the previous year of Bilbo versus Thranduil, and we called a foul and disqualified him.
I remember.
Yeah.
That little
Yeah, I
In
remember that.
2015, Chris, was also the first year that we divided the characters into specific
Region.
brackets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the first time, so we had our Lord of the Rings characters, we had our Hobbit characters, we had Silmarillion characters, and then we had others from Tolkien's other writing.
there you go. Yep.
And we did that to make sure that those actually survived.
Right?
When
And
it
that
got
is
to the
the
final four.
only year that we've had to disqualify because of bots voting.
Yep. And here was our final four that year. And the matchup ended up being Bilbo versus Gandalf. With
I believe Iluvatar would
Yeah,
lose.
he beat out Iluvatar.
You know,
And
that
Gandalf
year
wins.
caused a lot of metaphysical discussion for the first time among a lot of fans that were used to talking, you know, in much more simple ways about, you know, how good Lee Pace's eyebrows looked. Suddenly, we had really elevated the conversation with Iluvatar coming into the vote.
Indeed.
All right, so moving on to 2016. I believe we started again with the we now have the seating and the divisions actually themed.
Yes.
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember this one.
I love how Legolas is in the beauties category.
Beauty, brains, brawn, and baddies were our four themes for 2016.
Is this the first time you used green, Chris?
No, green was the first one, and then I got lazy because I had to
Oh,
change the gradient each time, and the gradient I had to change the green in multiple places, and I'm like, forget this, we're using green from now on.
All right.
Efficient.
I'm really lazy. So the and as you can see, our final four, we had Galadriel versus Gandalf and Beorn versus Morgoth. And we ended up with Galadriel versus Morgoth, which we have a cool little graphic here. And who do you think won?
It
Galadriel.
was Galadriel
Yes,
from what I
Galadriel.
remember. Yeah.
Yep.
Baddies never
2016
win. That's why I'm calling foul. Evil never wins, and I don't believe that's correct.
Galadriel took over 2/3 of the vote in that final, so she won by quite a hefty margin.
Yep.
Honestly, to Saramonella's point, that's what I'm excited about Amazon's Second Age series. The baddies might actually win this one.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
And she's so happy.
I know, and I'm saying too much. I realize I like, open World Wide Web. Oh well.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. All right. And the 2017 comes along. Again, themed divisions, movies only, books only, movies and book, and the wider mythos.
And an interesting feature of 2017 was that we decided to not have some of our previous champions take part. So in 2017, we didn't have Gandalf, Galadriel, Samwise, or Thranduil starting out.
Yeah.
And as a result, we got some really cool. Yeah, we got some really cool matchups and some really cool finals.
And I love the fact that we had the books only section, so that all those characters that people were missing got to, like Glorfindel and Tom Bombadil. I mean, all these people were like, oh, we don't hear about all of these characters, and there was enough characters from the books to fill out that category. That was what was kind of amazing.
Hey, shout out to the chat room. Hannah Ashdown in the chat room says, I like this. Reminds me of my high school lunch table nerd talks. Wonderful to hear people talking about something I enjoy. People like me, hearing their opinions, the camaraderie, the jokes. I love it. We love you, Hannah.
Nice.
I've heard since high school.
Awesome.
It's been decades.
In the 2017 brackets, notice also Sebastian the Hedgehog took part. I remember writing up that I was hoping he would go all the way, but sadly he fell in the second round. And the fox is also, I believe the fox is also in there. Yeah, there he is. The fox fell in the first round.
Yeah.
Justice for Sebastian.
I was trying to find the barrel whites. I was like, I can't see them. I'm like, oh no, wait, I just have really poor eyes.
Yep.
And who won this one, Chris?
Well,
Aragorn.
we had a final between Tom Bombadil and Aragorn, and we know who should have won.
We do. We do.
But,
it should have been
unfortunately,
Saruman, the king reclaimed his crown.
Pippin, right? Pippin won.
Wait, did Aragorn win or did Elisar win?
Or Telconte.
It was Strider
they're the
who
same
won.
guy. They're the same guy.
Strider.
No, it was
I
Elf
can't
Stone.
believe Tom Bombadil actually made it all the way
It
to
was Longshanks. He won.
Cliff has beat it into my thick skull that Elisar and Strider are different people.
All right, Kirsten, why don't you tell us about this year? Remember this year? This was 2018.
2018 was interesting because it's the only year that we've included characters that were nothing to do with Tolkien. And the way that we chose them this year was we had cast members from Peter Jackson's movies, both the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbits, and then we put in roles that those same actors had played in other movies. So half the characters are Tolkien movie characters and half the characters in these four brackets are characters played by the same actors in different movies.
It was very confusing.
So you have.
I'm actually amazed
things-
that you guys didn't put Benedict and Martin together so that people would have to vote between Watson and Sherlock.
Well, we tried to do it so that characters played by the same actor would come up against each other, and that happened in, I think, two. Yeah, Lee Pace's Ronan took on Thranduil in one of the rounds, and then Count Dooku and Saruman came up against each other in a fight.
Yeah.
So we tried to make sure that would happen. I thought it was hilarious, but I remember that it was not very popular with the fans that we had these characters in that were not related to Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did the final four look like, Chris?
So you had Sean Astin as Samwise, Andy Serkis as Gollum, Ian McKellen as Gandalf, and Hugo Weaving as Elrond.
So really,
the final being-
nobody wanted anything outside of Tolkien.
You had Andy Serkis as Gollum versus Hugo Weaving Elrond. And Gollum got his first champion. So evil-ish sort of won this year, right?
Yeah.
See, people in the chat room are giving me their opinion on who they would vote for from Sherlock versus Watson. And right now it's Watson, and I'm shocked because Sherlock should win that.
All right, so on to last year.
Some who live.
All right, so last year.
So last year was the first time that we strayed away from actual characters and decided to go for something other than beings, and this is when we went for our Middle Earth map March Madness last year. So they were all locations.
Yeah. That's why I love how we changed things up this year.
Well, and so coming out of these with the final four was Bag End, Rivendell, The Lonely Mountain, and Gondolin, with Rivendell and Gondolin fighting it out.
Wow.
And Rivendell being the champion.
Yay.
Solid win.
It's so pretty.
So that leads us to this year. But first,
Drum roll.
But first,
no.
Worst.
Not the Razzies, but the worst.
You're
I want to go
Okay,
around.
the blackberries. I'm sorry.
I want to go around the room virtually and have everybody sound off on their particular least favorite scene or sequence, or I'm going to add a caveat in solely for myself, or a character that you didn't like in the Lord of the Rings films. But I prefer if we try to keep it to scenes, because this year's theme obviously was scenes.
And you
so actually, I'm going to go.
Hobbit last time, right? No hobbits.
Yeah. Well, no, the Hobbit's definitely in this category.
Oh yeah,
what are you talking
It has
about?
to be a scene. You can't just blanket say the trilogy of Hobbit. You have to point out a scene.
Oh, okay.
Oh, actually, the other night you actually caveated this just to the Lord of the Rings, since that was the only category still in.
Yeah, I changed my mind.
Oh,
in
okay.
the day and a half. And now I made it a little easier for us all. So let's go. I'm going to go on my screen here, which is, I don't think the same as yours, but let's start with Justin.
Wow, what is my Razzie for the Middle Earth Peter Jackson that's not even a quadrilogy, sextilogy. Gosh, it's out of the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, Return of the King is my least favorite, and I know that puts me as an outlier. And I enjoyed The Hobbit very much so. The extended editions of The Hobbit are so good, and they're exactly, the extended editions are exactly what I wanted out of The Hobbit. But I'm gonna have to go with the Hobbit scene of the Fili and Keely dying. I expected so much more. I haven't even read the book The Hobbit, but the hype from Cliff and the fans and then the fangirls on Twitter and everybody was like preparing for crying, when Fili and Keely died, and then we watched it in the movie, and it was Fili was just kind of an afterthought. He's just like kind of thrown off screen, and we never hear about it again. And then in the theatrical edition, we didn't even get a funeral. So I have to say that the biggest crime and the biggest Razzie for the entire Middle Earth series is Fili and Keely's lack of death.
Yep. All right, Chelsea.
I thought we were keeping this to only the Lord of the Rings when we talked about it last time.
He changed it.
You can. Yeah, I know. I changed it up, but you can.
Anyway,
you can still go with
none of that actually matters to me, because I don't have a worse scene of anything. I just have annoyances that bother me, like how Captain Obvious Legolas is most of the time. A red sun rises. Okay, thanks. I can see that. But so that's what I've got.
My favorite one with that is when he just goes, a diversion. Like, yeah, dude,
exactly.
we all know.
This is exactly what I mean. I'm just like, really, did we just need to contractually give him more lines? Is like,
Okay, I'm next up on my screen. I'm going to go with anything that had Azog or Bolg in it. Next.
Oh.
Zen.
Wow.
Yikes.
No, you can't do that. You have to be specific at a scene that is just a Razzie.
All right, the first time I see Bolg. That's it.
Oof.
I have a list, but Chris says keep it to one.
Keep it to one. Your worst.
My very worst. Actually, like I said, I had a list. I was concocting a list, and my boyfriend Barry says to me, when I told him what I was trying to do, he says, "Well, what about this scene?" And I said, "Oh my God, you're right. That is the worst scene ever." And I'm not including the Hobbit films because there's way too much there. I couldn't even pick a scene. But from the original trilogy, sound like a Star Wars fan now. From the original trilogy, the worst scene for me is when they're having the whiz off, Gandalf and Saruman, and they're fighting. And then Saruman puts Gandalf down on the ground and spins him around like the Three Stooges.
Like the Three Stooges.
Every time we watch that, one of us goes,
He never fell off the floor for Isengard. It's so gorgeous. We just had to
Saruman
put
the
Gandalf's
wise
face
guy,
on it.
eh?
I'm shocked that scene delivered everything I could have hoped for a wizard battle, and I am gutted right
Except for
now.
that one little spinning bit. I didn't mind when he went up
You're
in the air,
kidding, right,
but on the
Justin?
ground.
I'm not kidding.
Well,
I'm not
not
kidding
kidding,
either. I
folks.
liked it.
what was Saruman's purpose there? I'll make him dizzy.
I can just see the pain in Justin's eyes as the camera gets slowly
It's
All
the
right,
helicopter
going to-
effect. You got to spin him fast
Okay,
enough
speaking
to
of-
elevate.
It's just a power move.
Speaking
by
of,
Saruman.
perfect
That's all it was.
transition. Perfect transmission to Saruman himself. What's-
Yes, Saruman, why'd you do that?
Well, I was just trying to show him who was boss. What better way to assert dominance than spin your opponent on their head?
All right, so what's your scene?
Okay, my worst one. Even though we were allowed to do The Hobbit at the last minute, I racked my brain for Lord of the Rings, so I'm going to stick with that. And I'm going to have to go extended edition, Return of the King, the drinking competition between Gimli and Legolas.
Really?
I hate that scene so much because it's
one of my all-time favorite scenes.
Why? I'm curious.
I'm with Josh.
It felt really out of character, out of place. I didn't like it.
Anytime Gimli was made to be the comic relief.
And I didn't like that Gimli was made to be the comic relief so much, especially in in Two Towers and Return of the King. But I feel like that was probably like the most egregious offense. That and when they're going to find the army of the dead and he's just acting like a scared wussy pants the whole time.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Josh, on the drinking scene. Like when they added extra drinking in the extended edition, I was like, why are you wasting my precious time with this?
Well, okay, the moment that I hated the most was when Gimli finally passes out and Legolas says, "Game over." I'm like, that is the dumbest thing he could have said. Like, I would have liked it so much better if he just said,
But again,
"I
Captain
win."
Obvious. That's just all he did the entire time.
There were so many ways he could have said that were not as dumb. Like he could have just said, "Oh, I guess I win," or something like that. I had giggled at that.
All right, we got to move
Also
on
just
because
been
we
done
got
with the subtle facial expression. It's like a left of an
All right.
eyebrow.
Okay.
We got to move on because we have so many panelists today. Let's do Jim. I'm going in order here. Jim.
Okay, this is really easy for me. It's under the general category of you have done violence to my characters. And so for me, the clear raspberry winner is when Frodo sends Sam away on the stairs of Kirith Ungol, and Sam goes. I have runners up in that whole division, but that is the most egregious violence to a character that I've ever seen, and I still get very angry about that.
Yes, that scene is hard to watch.
All right,
I'm with you.
Yep, Sam would never leave. You
He
wouldn't
would
leave.
never leave. No.
all right. Alisar.
Well,
Josh.
one of my two, when I sent you to, was one that Jim just mentioned. That's one that always irritates me quite a bit. And so when me and some of you know Rumi Dodson, when we get together and have lunch with, that's one of the scenes that comes up. The other scene that comes up inevitably is Frodo showing the ring to the ring wraith at Osgiliath. You're supposed to be hiding this freaking thing from the bad guys, and you just called an Uber and said, "Hey, by the way, here it is. Pick me up." It's one of those things. I don't mind him going to Osgiliath. I can roll with that part of it, but then he puts the bat signal up and says, "I'm here. Here's the ring," and the whole time you're supposed to be hiding it from these guys. It's just, there's a disconnect in there into what I think they were trying to do, and making the moment dramatic, and to me the Lord of the Rings trilogy has very few warts, what I would call warts, but that one's definitely a wart for me. It irritates me every time I see it.
All right.
I always got the feeling that he was being controlled to do that.
Yeah, that the ring was calling because they're closer to the minions, they're closer to Mordor.
Yeah.
Because obviously he does
All
it.
right.
He tries to put it on under the tree.
True.
Yep.
I get it, but I see your
All right. Saru Manella.
Yeah, that was mine too. Actually, when he stands up there in that whole scene in Osgiliath where he's like, "They're here. They're coming to get me."
It's the poltergeist. They're here.
I can't stand the whole plot hole of the ring goes to Gondor. I can't stand it.
Okay, all right.
That does violence for the Faramir character too. That was number 2.
Yeah. Green Dragon.
Yeah, I'm sort of taking a leaf out of your book, Kalasiri, and going for a character, but I will pick one scene. But it has to be Alfred Lickspittle. And I hate to say that because I feel mean to Ryan Gage every time I say it, because Ryan is a super lovely guy and he's a great actor. But boy, that character sucks. And every scene with Alfred in is annoying beyond belief. The worst one, though, has to be from the extended where he serves the master. And I love Stephen Fry too, but oh boy, he serves him testicles. So he has the line bollocks, and then Stephen Fry eats the bollocks on screen. Just why? In what realm did Peter Jackson go, you know what would really augment the stories just now? Someone chewing testicles. And let's just make sure that Alfred actually says what they are, just so we can really spell it out to the audience and get a cheap laugh. So, yeah, Alfred. Sorry, Ryan. I love Ryan. He's a great actor and he's a great guy, but boy, what a terrible character.
You know, the chat room agrees with you. When we started this segment, the chat room lit up with the bollocks scene from The Hobbit. Like everyone is on board. Like if you want to pin down the one that is farthest from Tolkien, it would be the bollocks scene from The Hobbit. A lot of people are just joining us now. I just want to reintroduce the show. This is our special Middle-earth March Madness final results show. And before we tell you who won this epic battle, we're going around the room here and explaining what is our least favorite scene in Middle-earth, the Razzies of Middle-earth. And right now, we've got Kathy to tell us what hers is.
Yeah, I was going to mention Alfred as well, but I'm going to follow Jim's thing of violence to one of our characters, and that's Faramir, which of course leads to the Osgiliath scene, is him finding out about the ring and actually being slightly tempted by it until, you know, Frodo has his reaction and stuff like that. So the fact that he's tempted by it and then allows that temptation to take them to Osgiliath is so antithetical to the character of Faramir, who actually was the true man and truly did decline the power, didn't want anything to do with it in the books. And I just, that irritates me to no end.
I've got that on my list too.
Yeah. Now, of course, we do get the whole, you know, we should, by rights, we shouldn't be here. We get that line, so we wouldn't have gotten that beautiful speech without that, but still.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that.
That's a long walk for an inspirational speech.
It's funny though you mentioned that because Hannah, when she responded in email to this question. I don't know if she was razzing me personally, but Hannah, what is your scene?
Oh, well, before I get into my scene, I really want to acknowledge Thomas Ford in the chat who says Alfred is the great value version of Worm Tongue. I think that's a really great analogy. It was just funny to me.
Oh, yeah. And Adam Cantor in the chat says Alfred was bootleg Worm Tongue.
Yeah. I don't know. That got a good chuckle out of me. Sorry. No, I cherry tomatoes, that's all I have to say. I can never eat cherry tomatoes ever again because of Denethor II. And yeah.
I agree with
My
you.
favorite
That's all I
scene.
gotta say.
It's
I'm
always a
with you,
little
Hannah.
annoying, yeah.
I will
All
admit,
right, Chris,
that
we've
scene is
got our own
beautiful,
side.
but I don't need to see the cherry tomatoes popping in his mouth. That's
Yeah,
kind of,
it's just it's gross.
And
It's
it
like
dripping down his chin.
yeah.
Wait,
The blood
so
of
the
Faramir.
tomato was gross, but the rest of the food he was also devouring in the
It's the
same manner.
blood
Was
of
fine.
Faramir.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the breaking of the chicken leg, or I think it was a chicken wing, whatever. You know, it's just like, just the whole
It's like
scene,
gross
not
eating.
talking about Pippin singing because
Well, but
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the eating.
I saw a very interesting thing online when I was looking up my least favorite Alfred scene. And I forget who it was now, but somebody and his mates had been doing like a commentary on The Hobbit. And they were like, this scene, referring to the master eating the testicles, this scene is a travesty when we compare it to, and they brought up Denethor with
Right.
Pippin singing, eating. And then they put the two together. So they put Pippin singing over the Master of Lake Town.
Ah, oh
Yeah,
gosh.
So bad.
Worse. Oh no,
Ah.
I don't need that.
And also with,
That
with,
is hilarious.
with the cherry tomato scene, I never understood how eating a sloppy cherry tomato inspires Pippin to sing a beautiful song.
Yeah, like I
But it
get
doesn't
the
inspire him.
imagery,
He was
and
forced to
I
sing
get
it.
the ideas behind it, like what you were saying about, you know, the cherry popping and then the blood coming, or the juice coming down his chin, like the
Yeah.
sorry.
So I'm just laughing at you saying cherry popping. Sorry.
Not like that. That's not what I mean.
And gross eating is actually a theme, because my second choice would have been making Éowyn a bad cook, and whatever
yeah.
it was in that soup that poor Aragorn had to swallow, which looked so gross. Whatever it was, they made it look the most inedible thing that you would want to eat. But I really hated the fact that they made Éowyn a bad cook. It's like, she's already this tragic heroine character. Does she have to be a bad cook?
Peter Jackson, what's going on at home that you don't like anybody's cooking? You know, like you're serving bollocks to the Master of Lake Town. Éowyn can't cook. He's eating sloppy cherry tomato. What is this?
I mean, he used to make his monsters in his mom's oven, so I mean, maybe there's a correlation there. I don't know.
All right, let's move on. We got to move on. Cliff.
He wasn't a good person. He wasn't taught love. He didn't have good manners. Like, of course, he's gonna eat like a monster.
Better than that.
All right, so let's get to Cliff. Cliff, what is your least favorite scene?
To say the least, everybody has already said everything that I was going to say. Especially,
I've got a few
you
suggestions.
know, I don't know
for
if
you.
my microphone still sounds bad back now. If it's any better, let me know. But the ring going to Osgiliath, no. Sam turning around when Frodo sends him home, never.
No.
Alfred Lickspittle in Bad Drag. See this? See this?
Oh yes.
This? Okay. Alfred Lickspittle in Bad Drag. All that other stuff, you know, that all takes the cake. But really, ultimately, what pissed me off the most, that was my very least favorite thing ever out of the 6 films, wasn't what was there, but what was not there. And it was the theatrical experience of not knowing what happened to Saruman and Christopher Lee unceremoniously being dumped out of The Return of the King. That absence of story resolution of what happened with Treebeard and Theoden. Why would Gandalf and Theoden and Aragorn and all of them be together at the Pillar of Orthanc, if not to resolve that storyline? And then suddenly they don't resolve it at all. That still made my blood boil, because the consequences of that was that Sir Christopher Lee was not able to share with his name on the SAG Award for Best Ensemble, which was awarded to the entire cast of The Return of the King. Mr. Sean Bean himself got his name to share that award, but Christopher Lee did not, because that scene was excised. That's always the thing that pissed me off the most, always.
Well said.
All right. Well, there's a lot of great
said.
ones.
There's some passion behind that one.
Sorry to pontificate. I apologize. Sorry.
No, you're
All right, we're
completely
ready.
right in your
It was
way
a
of
personal
thinking.
vendetta.
I think we've gotten to this point. We're 46 minutes into the show.
All right. I
we-
wrote down my prediction like you wanted for the
Cliff, I was
Oh, were we
expecting you
supposed
to
to
go
do
for
that?
the Ents refusing to march on
Wait,
Eisenhower.
I didn't write down my prediction.
Well, hold on. We're gonna get there. You're gonna have plenty of time to give your prediction.
Okay.
So here we go. Here we go. This is the finals.
Bum bum bum. It just felt like it needed
All right.
music there.
Shout out to Dave Gentry in the chat who joined us for the show yesterday. He says the lack of Bjorn was the biggest crime for him.
Yep.
Yeah,
Jim,
Bjorn should have been in more.
Jim, I'm gonna give Jim the floor here for a second, because Jim brought this quote to us today before we reveal our winner. Jim, you want to speak a little bit to this?
So as we were voting in earlier rounds, I kept remembering this letter that Tolkien had written, and I finally found it. So this is a 1955 letter that he wrote to his publisher, Houghton Mifflin. And what struck me as really meaningful here is that he basically has pegged 3 of the 4 finalists in what in his version would be in the final 4. So he's pegged the scenic division, the tearjerker division, and the action drama division. And the way he put it, as you can see on the screen, is by now, when the work is no longer hot, immediate, or so personal, so he's writing after this already been published, certain features of it, and especially certain places or scenes, still move me very powerfully. So here are his winners. The heart remains in the description of Karen Amroth. So that's the heart of Lothlorien. It's essentially the scene where Haldir and the company are overlooking Lothlorien and seeing the center in this of the city. What is it? I'm forgetting the Elvish name now. But so for him, that's the heart. And the scene is overlooking all of what's visible in Middle Earth, except for the darkness that's in the east and in the southeast where Mordor is. But then he says this, and here's my plug for the finals. But I am most stirred by the sound of the horses of the Rohirrim at cockcrow, which is one of our finalists, by the Battle of Pelennor Field, as the Rohirrim crest the hill, as the gates of Minas Tirith fall, as the Witch King is about to enter in, and the Rohirrim interrupt it. And what Tolkien says is, I am most stirred by that scene. So if you want to vote with the professor, vote for the Rohirrim. What's interesting, just to finish it off, is
You're telling them to vote for it, but we've already finished.
I know it.
This should have been your argument 2 days ago.
That's right. But you know what's really interesting too is that last quote, in the last section of it. He says, "But I'm most grieved." So here's his tearjerker, and it was not on any of the choices that we had. He's most grieved by Gollum's failure to repent when interrupted by Sam, which I was very thankful to see Jackson keep in the movie. Not quite the same as the book, but it was there. Yeah. And so it's when Gollum is reaching out to tenderly caress his master Frodo, and then Sam wakes up in the movie and calls him a sneak. And for Tolkien, that was the moment that was the point of no return for Gollum. Until that point, and he even wrote in some other letters what might have happened if Gollum had actually repented.
Yeah,
he was still holding out hope.
And you see that again with Sam's speech. And what are we left fighting for? There's still some good in this world.
Yeah.
and you see Gollum's face. I mean, because he's paying attention. You know, the speech has grabbed him, and then he turns his head, and you just know he's realizes he's on the wrong side of it.
So for Tolkien, that was the saddest moment of the book, and the instrument of that sadness was actually Sam, because even as good as Sam was, the way he told it is that in the real world, instruments of just retribution are seldom themselves just or holy, and the good are often stumbling blocks. And that was Tolkien's tearjerker.
Wow.
I was gonna say that would be one of my top 3 tearjerkers for myself too. I almost started crying when you were just reading it.
Yep.
So, Jim, I want to thank you for finding that, because I think that helps. And I did deliberately leave this to this show because I didn't want to influence. You know, obviously, people who knew of the existence of this letter could use it to their votes, but I wanted it to be something that was a post-vote scenario, because I thought it'd be interesting to see if the audience ended up agreeing with the author himself, right?
To be fair, is there a scenically described in full detail lighting the beacons that really shows justice to the scene we're comparing, though? Would Tolkien really have voted against lighting the beacons? I don't know.
That's a good question. Good question. But here we are, folks. This is
yesterday on Torn Tuesday, we opened up the chat and we had a lot of wonderful faces that we've seen at some of our Oscar parties and some of our picnics and events, and it was just wonderful to see all you and Cliff. Some of those people, we hadn't seen their faces since the old Stickam days. But we took a show of hands yesterday, and Chris, do you remember the results of that?
Yeah, the show of hands was clearly 70-30 for the beacons.
Oh.
Wow.
The beacons had it 70-30, and everybody gave a valid. I mean, everybody's opinion is valid, but everyone gave a passionate reason behind it. So I wanted to show you guys.
I'm so glad that everybody knows they're wrong.
We put a quick version of this to Twitter, you know, and it's lighting the beacons thanks to Gandalf's prodding versus the horse lords in the charge of the Rohirrim. And the results on Twitter.
Charge the real.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
It's quite contentious.
Charge of the Rohirrim is
wow.
more character based.
Yeah.
So yes, so that's exact opposite of what we saw yesterday, Chris. And so I wanted to ask you, as keeper of the poll, did you see a lot of fluctuations over the last few days?
No, in fact, this has been the same margin of victory since the beginning.
Wow.
And if you read I don't know what the result is, obviously, because Calasuri is not telling anyone, but and it's interesting what you say about show of hands in the chat room, a poll on Twitter. But I've been reading the comments on Facebook, both on the post that I put up yesterday when we opened voting, which had over 100,000 views, which I think is the first post we've had on Facebook that's gone over the 100,000 mark. And the comments there, and then the comments in our Works and Worlds of J.R.R. Tolkien group, Facebook group, the vast majority are pro-Rohirrim. There are comments pro-Beacons, but the vast majority of comments are pro-Rohirrim. So that suggests to me that that's the way the vote will have gone.
Well, let's poll this panel right now. Raise your hand if you voted for the beacons.
I did.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Raise your hand if you voted for the Rohirrim. 1, 2, 3, 4.
They are both great scenes. They are both great scenes.
Yes, they are. Yes,
so here,
we all voted against Tolkien. What does that say about us?
Well,
We
for those of
need
us
to
who
read the
haven't
book
read that
again.
letter, we didn't vote against Tolkien because we didn't.
Can I just say, the Charge of the Rohirrim scene actually annoys me, and I'm going to get shot down here because I think I'm the only person in the whole of fandom who's not like, they're both amazing scenes. But that scene, to me, all I can think is two things. One is Theoden would have seriously sharpened his sword before the battle, and now he's just whacking the edge of it on spears and blunting it.
I agree with you on that.
Battle. no warrior would treat their weapon like that just before a battle. And secondly, all I can think of is all the guys at the back going, what did he say? President of the cheesemakers? And so half the guys are not shouting death, half of them are going bread or something else because they have no idea what he's talking about. So
would you prefer
right, we're gonna go.
sung
That's
first
hilarious.
in the
What's
book?
that, Jim?
they sing.
Okay, hold
They
on.
sing going into
Hold
battle.
on. Everyone's gonna get a moment to talk. So give me Kirsten, do you have any other, or Green Dragon, do you have any other notes? And obviously you chose beacons. Any other notes before we go to the next person?
The lighting of the beacons for me, it's interesting again, reading the comments, a lot of people have said it's beautiful scenery, but it's not emotional. But for me, it is an emotional scene. The way that Gandalf says hope is kindled, and then you have this spectacular music, which is a very important part of the scene, and this soaring scenery, and then that sense, perfect timing of tension when Aragorn spots it and runs in, and then there's just the right amount of time before you get, and Rohan will answer. For me, it's a really emotional scene, and it gets me every time. So
what is your vote on the percentage of victory for beacons or vice versa?
I think Rohirrim is going to have won by 2/3 of the vote.
Wow. Okay. So 66 to 33.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to go to Cliff.
Didn't I make my prediction last week? And I have to stick with what I said just a few days ago.
Say it again.
I had
say it again.
The lighting of the beacons will be the winner. And I'd said 70-30, and maybe I could push it back a little bit, but I'll stick with that, my original speculation. And Green Dragon, I'm with you 1,000%. What she said, so adroitly said, it's about the wordless effect of good cinema. Some of the best cinema can be transcendent beyond languages, beyond anything. And thank you, Howard Shore, for the music, and Peter Jackson for having the sensibilities to put these things together. It makes it it's like the best of the art form of motion pictures. I love it. That's why I love it.
Cliff, I wanted to ask you, now that you've seen the quote that Jim found, how does that make you feel voting against the professor?
It makes me feel, I think I'm so grateful that Jim brought that to us. It's very, very insightful. Perhaps it was, I'd like to think, Peter Jackson's intent to stick with what the professor really wanted. And that's why Peter Jackson delivered such effort in making the charge of the Rohirrim not just an afterthought, because in the Rankin and Bass animated version, it doesn't work at all. It's not there. And Peter Jackson mustered the hell out of it. And not only were the forces of the soldiers, the Rohirrim mustered, so were the spirits of the audience. Peter did that. It was fantastic. So maybe Peter, tip of the hat to the filmmaker, who was the guy who probably read Tolkien's letters before he endeavored to make the films, probably.
Right. All right, we're going to go around the horn here. Justin, you're next.
Well, I've had a voice all week long, and it's got to be the beacons. It's the payoff for everything, and the scene ends with Aragorn running up the steps, and there's a breathless hold. Because at this point, you've watched characters die, you've watched lead characters die, you don't know what's going to happen. Rohan can just check out right now. They won their battle. There's no need to spill more blood, and just they hold on King Theoden just enough, and you don't see anyone whispering in his ear. And then you see Legolas, the elf, leaning against the column, and he just tips his head down and is ready to just be an elf that checks out of the land of men because he's over men. And then they say it, and they say Rohan will answer. I mean, God, I just said yes. That was I had a more emotional response to the lighting the beacons.
All right, you had 99 to 1. as the victory. Would you like to adjust your number?
Tolkien's
let us
dead.
stick by
We're
that.
in meme culture.
So it's 90.
He's sticking with,
Okay.
he's throwing that line in the sand hardcore. He's like, nope.
All right. So Chelsea,
all in.
you're up.
Oh,
Chelsea, you're up.
let's see. I voted for
Second breakfast.
Breakfast.
that's the wrong card. That's the wrong card. Sorry guys. I voted Beacons 60-40.
Okay. 60-40. Got it. And who we got next on the screen? Oh, me. I voted for the Rohirrim simply because of the scale of it. One of my most fond memories of the entire trilogy was just the scale of the action sequences. I've always been a sucker for action. I voted for that one over the Beacons simply because of the scale. But I also think the Beacons is excessively, like, these are our two finalists. I thought they were really good choices. But I voted for the Charge, and I can't give the percentage because I can't be biased. So we'll see. Let's go to Suzanne.
Okay. I want to just quickly repeat what I said the other day about how, because I'm leaning towards the Beacons, because it reminded me so much of Lawrence of Arabia with that little dot on the desert. Is there anything there? I don't know. Is it? I don't know. And it comes a little bit closer and you finally see that there is something there. And the Beacons reminded me of that. And my breath caught in the theater. I couldn't breathe because of how well that scene was done. So I voted for the Beacons, but Charge of the Rohirrim is going to win because it's a more character-driven scene.
You went fancy and printed that
Got
thing.
Bro, 54
It
48.
doesn't
You
count
did.
with you. It doesn't
Came
count
prepared.
unless there's a button.
There's a
What?
button.
Give me a minute. I'm sure she's got
Surely
one.
there's a
Give
button.
her a moment. She'll find
I
one.
don't have a button of the Beacons because it's just too wide a beautiful shot. I couldn't do it.
It
That's why
doesn't
you need
fit.
like one long continuous button.
Saruman,
The
Josh.
video button.
Okay. Well, I mean, I voted for the Beacons for basically all the reasons that everybody has already laid out. So I'm not going to repeat them because I agree with everything everybody said and I can't really add much more to it. That scene blew me away when I first saw it. But I do think, like Suzanne, that the Charge of the Rohirrim is going to win by a close margin. Like she said, like 52-48. I would probably go a little bit more 60-40. I feel like this is a very contentious choice. And honestly, like looking at the both of them, I'm going to say like either choice is a solid choice, really. Like I totally get it if you vote for the Rohirrim or you vote for the Beacons. They're both fantastic scenes. But for me, it's by degrees. I like the Beacons more.
All right. So you got 60-40. That Rohirrim's going to win, but you chose Beacons. Got it.
Yeah.
Jim?
I like Lord of
think
the Rings
you're
for this reason. Well, I like it for this reason. Well, you're wrong. Well, I'm right.
Jim is choosing Beacons, right, Jim?
Not quite. So but let me tell you what I like about Beacons. We got in the raspberries and we discovered that there were certain scenes where Jackson pushed too far, too hard, too falsely. There are some scenes, and I would include the Beacons with this, and also when we talked about the death of Boromir, which are not treated at great length in the book. And in the book, the Beacons is almost a curiosity. It's just a cool communication device. And it doesn't even go all the way to Rohan. But in the movie, it got elevated. It became epic. And everything that you guys are saying, it's not just cool scenery. It's actually a ray of hope and a response, and Rohan will answer as the punctuation. So it's a wonderful scene that really took the material and rose it up. But I'm voting for the Charge of the Rohirrim because, like Cliff said, this was a respected scene. It was pivotal. And as you heard with the Tolkien quote, it caught his breath years after he had written it. So for an author to go back and say, you want to know what I still think about long after, it's that scene right there. So I'm going to say Charge 59-41.
All right.
Jim,
you were a little
can
closer.
we be a little egalitarian here and go with Charge of the Beacons?
Charge of the
Lighting
beacons.
Charge of the beacons.
Lighting of the hero.
Beacons are
Changes
lit
things
and
quite
the horns are
drastically.
sounding.
I think
All
lighting
right.
the Rohirrim is much better.
Josh, Elisar?
That's Game of Thrones, so.
I think Green Jacket makes a great point on what makes the beacon scene very beautiful, and I think it's a very powerful scene as far as that goes. And I want to thank Justin for helping lead into why I think the Charge of the Rohirrim is better. You have all of that. You have all the things that the Rohirrim have gone through. Why? But he makes my point. They could have ignored them. They could have said, "We don't care about those guys. We want to stay home. We did good," but they didn't. They showed up. They were willing to risk it all. They were willing to die for somebody who didn't care about them. I mean, to me, that right there tells you the quality of the people of Rohan, that they're willing to die for somebody that hasn't cared about them in a long time. So why show up? They showed up. They were willing to sacrifice. Theoden gives a great speech. I get the weapon part. It's fantastic. And it is literally creates the greatest battle scene ever put in a movie, period. For me, it's not a debate. It's not something I can, challenge. It changed battle sequences in movies going forward, I think. And just that sequence in general, all the sacrifice that everybody was willing to make, that's your winner.
Okay. So what's your percentage?
I'm going to stay with 52-48. I think is what I said the other day.
Yep, 52-48. Yep. All right. Sarah Manella.
Okay, I chose beacons. I say beacons 75-25.
Ooh.
Got it.
Wow.
Do you have the lighting of the beacons without eating those cherry tomatoes?
Kathy, you're up.
Okay, yeah. I love Susan's comparison of the Lawrence of Arabia, and it's the scene when Omar Sharif's character shows up and you watch for 3 minutes while he comes up. To me, the closer thing with beacons is the rising of the sun in Lawrence of Arabia, because you have this slow build of music, and then the sun appears above the horizon, and the music just goes, and then you see the desert. So the combination of music and scenic is a long established cinematic thing. And I've always compared those two particular scenes, but being a huge fan of the Rohirrim, and I kind of have to agree with Tolkien actually on this, not knowing that he actually wrote those words, but the stirring of the speech, the horns blowing as they crest that hill. And more so, and I know we had a couple scenes from Helm's Deep in this bracket, but one of the scenes I had proposed and did not get elected in is actually, this is more of a callback to that scene, and it's the very first time we see the Rohirrim fighting when they're shepherding the residents of Meduseld to Helm's Deep, and they're attacked by the Ward Riders. And that whole scene of the riders start going out to meet them, and Eowyn is getting the horses ready, and Theoden is like, no, you must stay here. And Aragorn rides off, but not before making sure he connects with Eowyn. So that whole scene was the very first time that the Rohirrim made my heart just drop out of my chest. So this last scene, the ride of the Rohirrim, or the charge, is the same kind of thing. And by the way, when it comes to the weapon thing, Bernard Hill actually came up with that, asked Peter if he could do it, and Peter said yes. So of course it wasn't somebody who's used to using a sword. It was his idea. He thought it would look cool. It had nothing to do with.
No, and it's referential to real life. I had heard something about they did it with a cup against or swords or something like that. It's similar. It's similar to what happens in real life.
Oh, okay.
All right. So
so I'm voting for.
All right, Kathy. So what's your
It was the Beacons, or not the Beacons, it was the ride of the charge of the Rohirrim, and it was like 51-49 or something. It was like super close is what my vote was.
Yep, that's what you got. And Hannah, you're the last one here.
Garage door.
Final word.
Yeah, no garage door tonight. Both of them are important. Oh, okay. I thought somebody was opening the garage door. Sorry. Both of them are quite important scenes, and both of them do carry the message of hope in different ways. But without lighting of the beacons, you don't have, as everybody has said, you don't have Charge of the Rohirrim. It's the catalyst. I think that's the word I'm looking for the events. Without one, we don't have the other. And I think, I'm personally fine with whichever one wins. But
yeah, you had 50-50.
Yeah, I myself am 50-50 on the whole matter, but
coin flip.
I think I'm not sure, because again, both of them do have the message of hope, and both of them are such big scenes that mean so much to each side of the fan base. So honestly, I think it could go either way. So I'm still gonna stick with 50-50, or I might go 51-49, as Kathy said.
For Rohirrim?
For the horses?
Oh, I'm voting for lighting of the beacons. That's my personal thing, but I'm just saying it could go either way.
Got it. All right. So we've teased people enough, right?
Yes.
Yeah, let's get it over with.
Okay. I might have done a thing. I'm just warning you.
Of course you did.
Oh dear.
Oh no.
And the winner is Meryl Streep.
La La Land.
Somehow. All right. So here it comes, folks. This is the final matchup. This is the winner of the 2020 quarantine edition of Middle Earth March Madness. And the winner is
Go beep.
Garage door.
Garage door. Beep beep.
Yay!
Oh,
wait.
Hold up.
68%. Wow.
Wow.
I called it. Totally
Yes, you
called
did
it.
call it.
Hold up.
I'm shocked.
Wow.
Oh, Jim goes back
Oh,
to his
it's
original
right.
one.
Chris, I called it from the beginning, right?
Yes, totally. You did.
I don't
Wow.
think I caught the screen that I
stunned.
changed my
Absolutely
card.
stunned.
Is anyone surprised by the margin of victory? 68%.
Yes.
Oh, kind of.
I told you.
Yeah, you've been reading the comments. I've been working.
Characters.
Right, and I told you that this afternoon, Calisari, and you were like, nobody knows. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I know.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Kristen,
I'm surprised that
Green Dragon always knows.
are so, powerful in their own merit, and just listening to everybody talk, you can hear what it means to, everybody and the reasons that they voted for it and whatever. So I'm a little surprised it's essentially 70-30. That's a pretty wide margin of difference between two very powerful scenes.
How did we get to this place when last night it was apparent that the Beacons would win, and then the vote we just did amongst this group, the Beacons are win? Is there like a silent majority of horse people that we're not counting?
It's
The
the horse
spirit
people,
of the
yeah.
professor is strong.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, somebody out there must have read that letter from the professor.
I want to see
I
what people.
I mailed it to everybody between the last episode.
We have one more thing to do.
Chat room
One more
over
thing
on YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, Twitch. Let me see your emojis of who you voted for. A fire for the Beacons or a horse for the Rohirrim? Let me see some emojis in the chat room, because I cannot believe that the polling we did was wrong.
I can. It was backed by the Russians, dude.
No, your polling was right because it voted for the charge of the Rohirrim.
Did we get another bot attack? Is that what happened?
No, not at all. I was checking this the whole time. So
I'm
here's the thing.
really
We have
shocked.
one more.
Really surprised.
Oh,
by
you're
this.
shocked too, Cliff?
I am.
I'm shocked.
But in a good way,
All right. Yeah, in a good way.
But yes,
Nicole,
in a great way, but in a
Rasputin,
great
the evil
way, but-
Balrog, is going to call shenanigans, isn't she?
Yep. So here we have one more thing. We have the contest winner to announce.
Oh.
Ooh.
Very nice.
More drama.
So we had about 5,000 folks enter the giveaway. And they were going to win this cool Balrog from Star Ace and from our friends at Sideshow. And the winner is A. Fuentes. We'll email you. I can't say his first name for legal reasons. Could be Albert. Could be Alfred.
It's
Could
one of those Fuentes.
Alfred with an I.
It may not be the Fuentes, but it is
Arthur.
a Fuentes.
It's one of them.
So
Everybody
let's just,
Fuentes is going to contact us going, hey, I'm A. Fuentes.
So I just wanted to say
So we did it,
a quick
folks.
note because I'm going to jump off, but to everybody that has joined us for all of these live results shows for the last couple of weeks and been here every other day, it's been so fun chatting with all of you guys, and also to everybody on the panel that's been here. I've got to go get some food. I'm starving, but bye guys.
Bye,
Be a
take care of
hobbit.
yourself,
Bye.
Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us, love.
All right. So what's our takeaways here? What was the big takeaway this year from our March Madness?
Let's start with Cliff because he gave such an impassioned speech for the Beacons.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, the burden is on Peter Jackson to make them do it twice. You guys remember Éomer already shows up at the Battle of Helm's Deep. So Peter Jackson had to work in his own shadow to make the Return of the King come out a year later and make that extra second charge of the Rohirrim be that much more mind-blowing. So I'll take my hat off. Full credit to you, PJ. I think that there's something quite inspiring about the way the sun rises behind them, the way the camera tilts very slowly, and the horizon changes in the distance, and the sun comes over, and it's almost like a rapturous moment. And I think it's so very much in the spirit of Tolkien. Good on you, Peter Jackson, for making it work. But for my money, I thought it was really going to be 68% lighting of the beacons, but I'm just crazy like that. Okay. So.
Kathy.
I forget who it was, whether it was Jim or Joel the other night, who mentioned that when he filmed this sequence and its cavalry, that he wanted to make sure the number of horses exactly matched the largest cavalry charge in our recorded history, so that it would be so that nobody could say, oh, you never have that many horses, and he'd be able to say that's exactly how many they had in this battle. So it was sort of like his way, because he is such a buff for war history, to pay tribute to previous battles, which of course is what Tolkien was sort of writing about, was sort of the experience, both being in a battle and what happens when you come home from that battle.
Mm-hmm.
So, but overall, I love the engagement. I think people really, really engaged really well with this. I don't remember what our numbers were with some of the others besides the bot ones, whether or not we had this level of engagement before. So I was really, really glad that there was so much discussion and it was all love, for all of these sequences.
Well, that's a perfect segue into Green Dragon. You've been keeping track of the engagement. How'd it go?
Yeah, I do think this year it's been more, and I don't know if that's partly because of the situation that we find ourselves all in these strange days where we're maybe looking for things to do, for lots of people who aren't going out the door in the morning in the way that they normally would be. That may be one reason why we've had more engagement. March Madness always takes me by surprise, I have to say, because I don't really get it myself. I'm always like, oh, it's one of those American things. So every year I'm like, do the fans really want this? And every year before we do it, we get emails from the fans saying, are you doing it this year? Are you doing it this year? And then every year when I'm writing the posts that go up every couple of days, I'm thinking, oh God, why am I putting the time into writing these posts? And yet, and it's so gratifying to see how much people enjoy it. And I do think this year more than ever, people have really got into it and have really been enthused and had lots of interesting comments. And I love that. I love seeing people being engaged and having fun with it. And so my takeaway would be, yeah, it's, you know, it's always worth the work because people get a kick out of it, and that's great. And I think we need to put our heads together, and we will here at the One Ring, to see what else we can do in the next few weeks above and beyond the sterling work that Justin and Cliff always do with Torn Tuesday and amazing live shows. Let's see what else we can add as extra fun things for us to be doing during these crazy days, so we can keep each other company and give each other something fun to do.
Hannah, got any ideas for what we can do to stay engaged?
Oh, I never thought you would ask me that. I have quite a few ideas. No, legit, I do. Wait, am I supposed to say them right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, we could probably do something along the lines of like doing Lord of the Ring inspired recipes, like llama spread. You know?
Yep. Yeah, that's cool.
The trivia thing that I brought up the other night, that was like 2 shows ago, I think. I don't know.
There's a lot of opportunity. Jim had some great ideas too. Jim, when you sent the slide deck, I think we can easily fill out something every week for the next 3 years of isolation that we're in for. I mean, I'm sorry, 3 weeks.
Oh, don't say that, please, Chris. Please.
No, I'm clinging to a hope in 18 months there's a vaccine.
I don't want to go down the COVID route. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Let's not end on the COVID.
There's a bunch of new viewers in the chat room saying, what is Torn Tuesday? Clifford.
What? Gasp.
We've got a show for you.
With the most playful acronym in any fantasy fandom. Torn is what we call ourselves at the One Ring Net. Okay, Boomer. Funny little acronyms, that's our thing from 20 years ago. So, okay, Torn Tuesday.
It only took Sean Astin 18 years to figure it out.
I know, that's true, But we just realized since the very end of March, beginning of April, we have now rolled over into our 8th year, continuously providing a Tuesday weekly show, which is a pleasant little garden of live people chatting with us on various platforms, while we interact and interview any number of different guests who come across the table with us. We've been most famously hosted at a skyscraper downtown LA with Stickcan, and then we moved over into Meltdown Comics, may they forever rest in peace, where we had a great little green screen theater inside the comics building. And now we're at Scum and Villainy Cantina, where we can actually have live people in the live audience for the first time ever, come and be part of a live show. We've been co-hosted with Hannah there and Chelsea, who just did her sign-off. She's also co-hosted with us. And we interview people all the time who've worked in front of the camera and behind the camera on the 6 films and other aspects. Lord of the Rings video game designers and producers, people who have other merchandising and licensing. We talk to people from the creative arts who do other animation and makeups and swords, all kinds of fun things.
And it's every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, noon Hobbiton time. But this isn't the only show that the One Ring has done. Saruman over there had his own show for a while, Torn Book Club.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's so good, I won't let any of my friends read the Silmarillion anymore without immediately going to those wonderful episodes that Josh made, helping guide people through the Silmarillion. Torn Book Club is the coolest, by the way.
Thank you for that, Cliff. That's a pretty big statement, and I mean, like that is a big
True.
endeavor. Like reading the Silmarillion is an endeavor, but also watching those videos I made, because that's like 20 hours worth of material.
Yep.
But to that point, because we are enclosed, and because I'm now working from home, and my home office also happens to have my webcam and everything in it, I'm thinking I might try bringing Torn Book Club back.
Yay.
Yeah, for that.
Probably not in the same way as before, because it was difficult for me to just keep coming up with material week after week. But one of the things that I always loved about doing that was not just the Tolkien discussions, but when we would discuss other books and just like the wide breadth of knowledge that everybody has. And so I might start doing that again with like picking a book each month, and we read it and discuss it, and then maybe do some smaller pre-recorded videos. What I really want to do is I want to like revisit that whole Silmarillion series that I did before and do it scripted and pre-recorded, rather than doing it live and off the cuff and going off of my notes and being distracted by chat the entire time.
Hey, where can we find the old videos?
They're all on, well, most of the archives are on YouTube. At the username I believe is Torn Book Club 1, because I screwed up when I first tried creating the username and it wouldn't let me change it back, so I just created a new one.
Very
Torn
good.
Book Club
And I
1.
wanted to say we need to, today's the 18th anniversary of Tolkien Forever, and since we have Christy here, the founder,
Oh, yes.
just mention that and what kinds of events Tolkien Forever has done.
Well, most of our events are in person, so I think that's pretty much on hold until things get better, because we were going to do a thing at the Ren Fair this year, because we used to do that. And we always had our Hall of Fire event, and that none of that's going to be able to happen this year. But yeah, today I can't believe that my anniversary falls on tax day, although this year it's not tax day, so reprieve. But yeah, that 18 years ago I created Tolkien Forever on the Decipher chat board.
Yeah, well,
And people
people
can follow you on Facebook. There's a Facebook page called Tolkien Forever.
Yeah, we're on Facebook. That little group now has over 10,000 members.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah. So yay, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Elisar, you used to run our Tolkien collectors group, but that startup has gone down, is no longer with us. But you keep up with the YouTube videos and tweets and posts about collectors.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, obviously we had a pretty good little thing going. I think we were at 10,000 or so members on the Gemmer group before it went belly up. You know, got some reviews coming up. One, it's getting better weather here in Missouri, so I can go outside and do those. So that's always good. I have plenty to review, and obviously with not a whole lot to do because we're stuck in, you know, purgatory forever. What it seems, you have a chance to do that. So we have that. I'm always up for ideas if we do something like this and we want to talk about collectibles one time or whatever. It's always fun to chat with other people about it, just simply because I'm interested in always hearing other people's thoughts. I know what I think about them. So
yeah, it'd be nice. We had someone on the air before we went into quarantine. Cliff, we had a friend over in Maine show off some of his collectibles, and you know, maybe we should start our own weekly show or maybe once a month show where people can join the chat like this and show off their personal collection.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
Bring out your Arkansas.
That, yeah.
we can
Josh,
we can put our brains together.
Definitely you have to review the new Minas Morgul environment when it finally gets here. It got stuck in quarantine too.
No,
But,
yours got. I've got mine downstairs in my collection room.
oh, mine is stuck in quarantine.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's the one we did a live unboxing of that Minas Morgul. The guy from Rhode Island dialed in and showed us how it glowed in the dark.
It's really cool. The only bad thing about it is like the way my collection is set up, I don't have a plug-in. So the plug-in stays in there. But the way they designed that is pretty cool because of the tower slides in. It's made of a totally different material. And there's a couple little things about the tower that I didn't realize, that I got told at Comic-Con by one of the Weta people, and it's a neat little tidbit about the tower and the number of spikes on it and what it means and stuff like that. So I may save, unless you guys are dying to know, I might save that for the reviews.
Mad Eye Gamgee, Jim, you're popular on Twitter, but you're one of our regulars at Dragon Con every year with Kirsten. But you know, I just don't see Dragon Con happening. So what do you think we can do over the summer to kind of keep the community together?
I've been starting to think about like virtual con. I don't know how that's going to happen or how we pull it together, but I mean, this format demonstrates that it's possible to pull in wide audiences and great content and make it happen. And so who knows? I mean, I think what we're going through now is going to transform a lot of things, and we won't be going back. So it's kind of an existential moment for some of these big cons, honestly. Maybe it'll all rebound to where it was before, but there's a lot of we'll see what's going to happen and how soon people feel like, well, Concred's one thing, something a little more deadly, something else. Do I really want to go in that elevator or across that bridge?
You're talking like the elves. You know, when Aragorn became king, the elves just pieced out.
You're making me nervous there, Jim.
Yeah, but see, I think that there are silver linings in all this. I could see a con that's going to create marketplaces on it. I could see a con that would be able to collect all kinds of talent. People on this panel right now have amazing contacts, and if you could tell somebody, you won't be able to get the autograph, but man, could you have a great panel through the sorts of contacts, and you're only going to commit for an hour.
You know what? You're right.
I have to
Jim.
say,
We
with
might be
the
on
Ren Fair,
tip of a new paradigm that we just might start looking at with fresh eyes. Yeah.
And you don't have to wait in line outside Hall H for a day.
Hall H is now an infinite hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, for the Ren Fair was canceled this year, and one of the things that they did online was do a Ren Fair relief page. And sorry, my cats are destroying my house. The great thing about it is that I got to shop vendors from across the country that I normally wouldn't have been able to see before, and that was really, really special and fun for me.
So there are lots of things you have to work out, you know.
Suzanne,
It would be a good way to support some of the vendors that the vendors that we see every year at all the various conventions, you know, to be able to pull some of them in and help them out.
That's right. Suzanne, you're the button lady. You bring joy to everybody with your presence. I hope you're surviving this quarantine.
I'm doing pretty well. You were asking what's the takeaway from all this, and I would say never go against a Sicilian when death is on the line. But
But
beyond that,
Conceivable.
I was reviewing Two Towers today, trying to find the worst scenes and all that. But there's this really nice little throwaway line from Theoden that I think applies a little bit. I took it to heart. Just a little throwaway line, and he said, "Crops can be resown, homes rebuilt. Within these walls, we will outlast them." And I just thought it was kind of nice because it kind of pertains to staying at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have the buttons and no one to share them with right now. So
We'll figure it out.
That's
I want to say real quick before we end that, you know, next year we do this again, you know, whether there's basketball or not. And we're always open to your suggestions and ideas related to the Middle-earth March Madness campaign. So feel free to send those directly to I was gonna say
to Josh. Just to Josh.
Which Josh?
Both.
There's two of them.
we have an email. It's webmaster@theonering.net, and you can easily submit stuff there. By the way, that only goes to me. And we'll sort through your ideas. You might not get a response, but if you contribute the idea for next year, we'll make sure to give a shout out to you. And I think next year we should try something a little different in that when the staff have decided the theme and we go into our voting of the seating, we should have a live stream to talk about it. Like, hey,
Oh yeah.
we're doing our seating right now.
Like the bracket.
This is how it's done.
That's good.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. That would be
And
nice.
just get this engine rolling a little earlier. So
you
people can be.
are you taking ideas now to prime the pump, or are you going to send you an email?
Sure. Well, we're gonna I think Green Dragon. It's only 4:30 in the morning for her. We might let her go.
She's up, man. She's got her day in front of her.
To be honest, I came back from the States 3 weeks ago, and I still have not managed to get onto UK time because I'm in splendid isolation, and I just have been stuck in the wrong time zone. So it doesn't feel like 4:30 in the morning. It feels like East Coast time and time to head to bed sometime soon. But I probably should.
Well, just in case you drop off, thank you, Kirsten, because Kirsten does the homepage posting, which oddly enough, of all of our methods of voting, inspires the vast majority of the voting that happens. Thousands and thousands of people vote as soon as we post on the site, and so thank you for your efforts there, Kirsten. This whole year and every year, because you seem to do it. You get to do it every year.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Right, what was the idea there, Jim?
I have at least three. First, I think that this idea was really good. The shift up was fun. I think that there are even more categories. If you didn't want to repeat the categories, things like friendship and love would be an interesting category, or horror, or dialogue and debate, or perfect shots.
Oh wow!
Could all they could form their own divisions, and so there's a lot of material there.
Horror would be the Uruk Hai coming down.
Yeah.
There was
There's 3 characters that have more than 12 names. I'm just saying.
There was a suggestion in the chat earlier. Somebody had suggested, like ages ago in the chat tonight, somebody suggested best line of dialogue. That we could pick just lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
64 of those to start with.
In other words, all the memes?
Or the meme thing that Justin.
Oh.
Yes.
Just memes that are true.
Scenes that made memes. The other thing we could do is do worst scenes, as we started talking about them tonight. Start off with 64 scenes that people hate.
Or characters. We could flip it on its head and talk about characters too.
Well, most of the contests so far have been, if you look over that history, have been people. We did locations one year. You could go with either. Well, first I thought of it as weapons, but then I expanded that to objects, and so you could have the Palantir going up against
Sam's frying pan,
or the frying pan, or the One Ring. Is that going to be the?
We've done the One Ring before, and I think we did the talking purse once.
Yeah.
We did. We talked about one year doing exactly what Jim is saying, all objects, and that was going to be.
We couldn't get enough.
Yeah, that's right. We were going to do the talking purse and so on and so forth, and we just found that we didn't have enough objects that we thought would work.
The interesting thing that I've learned this year and all these conversations that we've been having and online with all the comments, and I'm still reading the comments. You guys are awesome. The difference between book scenes and movie scenes is a strong driver of what voted, what the votes were. And so, we could potentially, pit the book scene versus the movie scene, and any movie. It could be the animated movies. We could pit the two Blunt the Knives, Bend the Forks songs against each other and things like that.
You're including the animations as well.
Yeah, just all the adaptations and the source material. Like let's pit the scenes against each other.
I mean, where there's a whip, there's a way.
Yeah, oh my God.
That one's first place. No questions asked.
That is first place, by the way. There's no competition.
Could we do collectibles?
Collectibles would be interesting.
Yeah, like all, because I guarantee this house has more than 64 collectibles in it, and I'm not the biggest collector in this group. So
More than that, just in this room. Yeah.
I still have things in boxes.
Chris, any final thoughts on what are your final thoughts on this? Anything surprising, either in the data or the voting or the reaction?
Yeah, I would actually say the biggest surprise for me this year was in the numbers of voting, we were very consistent in the total vote counts each round.
Yeah, it's between 52 and 55.
Yeah.
We basically engaged, I'm using marketing terms now, sorry. We've engaged, 5,000 people for a month to participate in this effort. And that's, for a time where websites are not really a thing anymore, to be able to have 5,000 people participate in a manner that they did consistently through 7 rounds, essentially, was surprising to me. And that was really cool. It just shows that, we still have a strong Tolkien community out there. And I think it's, when we choose a really good theme, one that connects with a lot of people, we're going to see those people show up in a more consistent basis. So I was really excited by that. That was one of the big takeaways for me. And then I really enjoyed, this quarantine stuff, this staying at home stuff has been a challenge, obviously, for all of us in our lives. But on the positives, there's been some really amazing things that come out of it. And one of those, in my opinion, was this year's event. Our ability to hang out and do shows like this. I would normally not have the time to do it, but I do now because of this, quarantainment concept. So I love it. I think it's a really big positive, and I think it could really help help people get through this time. I think this is, we need to fall back on the things we're passionate about. And I think that's why we also saw a lot of people get involved, and why we had a lot of our staff involved. And I don't know, that was my main takeaways.
Well, that was awesome. I appreciate everybody joining in on this call. Cliff, great to see you at the first episode and the last episode. You're such an ent sometimes. And great to see everybody in all these different time zones from around the world. And all of you watching online at home, some of you 4 a.m, thank you for staying up or getting up. The chat has just been wonderful. And I think a lot of us here were following along with chat today and through the whole thing, all the tweets, all the votes, all the memes. This has been just a wonderful thing. So this has been Middle-earth March Madness 2020. Congratulations to A. Fuentes for winning the Sideshow collectible Balrog bust. And we'll be getting in touch with them real soon. And guys, I am just shocked that the Rohirrim won. The polling,
the flaming Rohirrim.
It was just amazing. So I'm gonna wave bye, everybody. Wave bye. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for joining us.
Good
Night, everyone.
Bye.